All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started here. This is probably gonna be a really short episode of Tech Thursdays because really there's, other than the Nintendo Switch 2 and maybe some high capacity, 128 gigabytes of DDR5 CU DIMMs, there's not a whole lot of tech related stuff to talk about. So we may talk a lot more about the gaming side of the house this stream. So I see Super Googly mention Clair Obscure. Yeah, we are going to be streaming a lot of Clair Obscure. That game is looking really, really good. We are going to be covering that on this channel really, really soon. But the main thing that I think is worth talking about today is the Nintendo Switch 2, because today, if you're not aware, today, at least in the US, was the pre-order day for the Nintendo Switch 2. So it started, I want to say, depending on where you were, I think if you were on Eastern time zone, so like New York City, for example, or the East Coast in America, the pre-order time to get the Nintendo Switch 2 from the major retailers, the big 3 or 4, was midnight of today. So basically, it's been a while in terms of hours. With the one exception being Amazon. Amazon was not one of the choices for pre-ordering. So if you were someone who really wanted a Nintendo Switch, or the Switch 2, I should say, the time to get one and ensure that you can get one on launch day was today. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I'm not a large channel, so I'm not going to get a review sample from Nintendo or anything. I'm not IGN, for example. So I had to pre-order my own. So I was in there with everybody else trying to get one. It felt very much like any hardware launch in the past 4 years now, where you had to be ready, you had to know what to do. It was the battle against the bots, the battles against the scalpers. So basically, let's talk about it. So in the US, there were 3. So there was Walmart, Target. Actually, we'll just go right into paint. I don't know how much of this is going to be relevant to those of you outside of the US, but we're kind of like really light on tech news this week, so just kind of go along with it. So in the US, there was Walmart, Target, Best Buy. I think these were the 3. I'm trying to think, was there a 4th? Oh yeah, the 4th one would be GameStop. But GameStop was a little bit different out of the 4. So these were the 4 major choices if you wanted a Nintendo Switch 2 on launch day. So remember, the console launches on June 5th. So it launches June 5th. Nintendo Switch 2 launch day is June 5th. So it's a little bit more than a month out. The pre-order day was today. So, or I guess midnight for today, which would have been, almost 24 hours ago. So, Best Buy is like the 2 words. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think you're right. So Walmart, so I guess out of most people that are not familiar with how to do this probably had a hard time getting one of these. But getting a Switch 2 was surprisingly easy, actually. So I almost completely forgot. So yesterday evening, so it was around, it was like, I I think it was like 20 minutes after the go live to try to get one started. So I went online, Walmart. I tried Walmart. Walmart was actually, it was still available at even 20 minutes after. So I got in the line for Walmart, the online queue. Target, I didn't even bother to try because Target basically, it's like this website has the least amount of anti-bot measures. So this is the one that like gets completely spammed by bots instantly, and it's like you don't get a chance, as far as I remember. So I tried for Walmart, I tried for Best Buy. So I got in the line for the the Mario Kart World bundle, all that good stuff, the 499 bundle, and GameStop was not available at go live time. It was either Walmart, Target, or Best Buy. And I did Walmart and Best Buy. And what happened was, so I got in line. I didn't try to refresh the tabs or anything. Best Buy, after around 50 minutes of waiting in the queue, Best Buy popped up. And it's like, it's in your cart. You have it was like, I think 10 minutes from the countdown started. You have 10 minutes to check out or something like that. So I just did the checkout on Best Buy, and I just straight up got one off of Best Buy just like that. So for me, it was easy. And I was like late to the party. I was like 20 minutes late. It was like, so midnight happened on the East Coast. It was like 12:20 in the morning when I finally got in the line for Best Buy, and I got one. So as all these people who try to get this stuff on launch day or on I guess pre-order day, they say secure the bag, secure the deal. I secured the bag like it was easy. So I didn't have any problems getting one off of Best Buy. Walmart, now the thing with Walmart was, I don't know what happened. This one, it stayed in the line for so long, and I think eventually it would have gone through, but once I got it from Best Buy, once I get the confirmation email that, your order will be ready for pickup on June 5th at the local store, all that stuff. As soon as I got that, I canceled. I kicked myself out of the Walmart line because it's like there's no point. So yeah, so I managed to get one. So I will have a Switch 2 on June 5th, regular retail model, like all the regular people. So we will be doing some Switch 2 content on the channel in June and probably in the second half of this year, because there's really not a whole lot else to talk about on the gaming side. Now, there's a game that came out today. So today is the launch of Clair Obscure Expedition 33, which I have already started playing, but we will be covering it live on stream. Man, that game, I don't think I hate to say this, because as much as I like Monster Hunter Wilds, I do think that Expedition 33 has, in my mind, the 2.5 hours that I have played of it so far, it is more worthy of Game of the Year status than Monster Hunter is, in my mind. So currently, based off of all the games that I've looked at that have come out this year, I can say with high confidence that Expedition 33 is the front runner, as far as I'm concerned, for Game of the Year 2025. That game's on a whole nother level in terms of like originality. While at the same time it's being original, it also maintains that familiar feel for those who played role-playing games from the late 90s and throughout the 2000s decade. It really captures the vibe of games from a different time period that have almost long been forgotten. There hasn't been a game like this. I guess the closest one that I can think of in recent memory is probably Metaphor ReFantazio, which came out last year. That one was really good, and I think that one was also a contender. Well, I don't know if it was contender for Game of the Year. Maybe it was. I can't remember. But Metaphor ReFantazio is probably the most recent example of a modern RPG that is wholly original, but also kind of stays true to the roots of the RPG genre. Is Oblivion out? Wait, is Oblivion remaster or remake out now? I thought that was coming out later. Oh, it is. Interesting. Yeah, but see, that's... So is it completely different from the original, though? Like, is Oblivion like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in that regard? Is it like a completely different game? Or is it just a high-fidelity new remastering of the original, and it's like all the same as the original? Because if it's the latter, then I don't know how I feel about that one being a new original IP the way Expedition 33 is. If it's more like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like where it's a complete reimagining of everything, although some Oblivion fans might not like that, yeah, then it's a good classic. I don't think it'll win any awards though. That would be like somebody taking like Final Fantasy VII from 1998 or 1997 or whatever and just like making it have ray tracing or something. Graphically remake other things remastered. Well, okay. I'll have... Oh, it's UE5. See, but that is like Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. And I wouldn't consider Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. As much as I like the Ninja Gaiden franchise, I wouldn't consider a UE5 remaster of the original 2008 game, something super... I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong. That's amazing that you get to re-experience an old classic with modern technology. You're asking when am I doing the scheduled stream for what? For Expedition 33? That'll probably be this evening, because this episode of Tech Thursdays might be really, really short, or it'll be tomorrow. If not this evening, it'll definitely be tomorrow. I can tell you that. There will be either two live streams or 3 live streams of Expedition 33 this weekend. One of them might even be very, very soon here, if we can get through this. There's not a whole lot to talk about on the tech stuff. There is one thing I wanted to bring up. Let me go to that real quick. There's the CUDIMs. So we're starting to notice this more and more. So Crucial now has 128 gigabytes of DDR5 6400. So if you guys have not seen my videos that I've done on 128 and 192 gigabytes of DDR5 and how to get that running at like DDR5-6000, for example, and how challenging it is to get that running, there are newer memory modules that are coming out now that are going to make doing something like that, what used to be very, very challenging, much, much easier to do. So Crucial's doing this. G-Skill has another one. I think it's a 256 gigabyte kit, but I could be wrong. G-Skill has a very high capacity kit that does run at high speeds. So we may talk about that one too. But this is one from Crucial. This one is CUDIM. So this is using the CUDIM technology that is supported by the Intel Z890 platform with the clock driver, which I want to say that the clock driver can probably help make this easier to pull off compared to doing it manually. Manually tuning this to get it to run at these type of speeds with this type of capacity is incredibly challenging and very hard to do, and almost not guaranteed. So, hey Mark, great question about the motherboard. So the motherboard makes a difference, but CUDIM removes the necessary difference. So what I mean by that is if you have CUDIM, and if the motherboard supports CUDIM, or I guess the platform supports CUDIM, then the motherboard doesn't matter as much. Because the clock driver, the whole idea behind the clock driver is that it cleans up the signal. So if you have a low-end motherboard or a more noisier motherboard with less layers, like a 6-layer board, for example, you can do high speeds with CUDIM. So the motherboard becomes less important if you have CUDIM. But the platform has to support the CUDIM. So you cannot just buy CUDIM and then put it in, like a Z790 or an X670E and expect it to work, because those platforms don't support CUDIM. And currently X870E only does bypass mode, which is really no different than saying it doesn't actually support it. It doesn't actually run the clock driver, so you're not getting the benefit of the amplified and regenerated signal. So traditionally, the motherboard matters, but with CUDIM, the motherboard doesn't matter. So that's the nice thing about it, because it's like it shifts the burden of needing a higher quality motherboard, a more expensive motherboard, to not needing that, and instead putting the emphasis or the role of that on the memory sticks themselves. So that is the primary benefit of this technology. And this is the sort of thing that I expected it to do. I was like, when I first saw this technology last year, I was thinking, this would be really, really good if someone wanted to run a lot of memory at higher speeds. I mean, it's great that it can do, you can take 2 of these sticks, and, we've done a video about this last week where we've shown like DDR5-8000, and you can overclock it potentially even higher. And now there are even higher speed kits that are like, 9,000 plus. That's cool, but you're limited to 48 gigabytes. So that kind of, to me, it's like, well, it's cool, but for someone who is really a power user, it's not that practical, because I would much rather have higher capacity like this than, 2 sticks that are running at like 8,000 plus. So, but it's good that this technology is where the innovation is right now for DDR5. I see the comment earlier. I was kicked out of Best Buy 4 times and I was on time to queue up. So quick question on the Best Buy thing. Did you ever get the chance to do the checkout? When you say you were kicked out of Best Buy 4 times, did you ever get the chance to do the checkout? Because a lot of people that had that happen to them, they got kicked out because they had something wrong with the payment processing. That's my understanding. Like if your credit card info and all that stuff was set up to go, like it should have been a very, very smooth checkout. Like for me, it was super easy. It's like it told me you have like, it started with 10 minutes. It started counting down. There was a timer at the top of the website saying you have 10 minutes to check out. And it was like 9 minutes 59, 9 minutes 58, 57, 56, 50. It was like counting down like that. And I had to do the 2-factor, send me a text message, put the last 4 digits of your, phone number, blah, blah, blah. It's going to text you the code. Type that code into the website. I had to do all that stuff, but I did all that, and it was super smooth, and it was easy to check out after that. So the people that were getting kicked out, my understanding was that they didn't have 2-factor set up, or they were having to add a credit card, and then it was like, oh, well, the credit card was kicking. It was like activating like fraud alert or whatever. And it was like freezing the transaction. Like a bunch of that stuff was happening. And that could also be because people were also trying to do the same thing on other websites. Then there was the whole thing about like, oh, use PayPal. No, I don't think that's really necessary. But that was kind of a weird. Well, that's not weird. That's just how those things go. Trying to buy hardware on a pre-launch, pre-order, limited time thing, and you've got literally like Like, man, the Jake Randall live stream had like 25,000 people trying to check out all at the same time on Walmart and Best Buy. It was crazy. And that's just like one source. That's like one audience, one big group of people trying to like buy the thing right there and then. I can only imagine if you have like 25 to 30,000 people watching one guy live stream how to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order. You have all these 30,000 people trying to like do the thing on Best Buy, all of them queued up in line. I mean, it's like you can imagine how just multiply that number like across the entire United States, and it's like that's why you have the queues. That's why you have people getting kicked out of line and all this stuff. So the problem with pre-ordering hardware is you have to have everything ready to go like immediately ahead of time. You have to plan way in advance how to do that. There's so many other people that are competing for the exact same thing, the limited number of Nintendo Switch 2s or graphics cards or whatever it is. And you've got all the bots, you've got all the scalpers, you got like, you pile all of them in on top of that and everyone else. Man, all I gotta say is go back and look at the Jake Randall live stream from yesterday night. That guy was live for like, I don't know, like 6 hours. It was like a 6 hour. It was like a GTR like motherboard live stream. Like the guy was live for like 6 hours or something, trying to like show how to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 on like all the different websites. And he was like telling people, "Oh man, Target's up. Everybody rushes Target." It's like, "Oh, Walmart guys, Walmart's open. Everybody rushes Walmart." So it's like, I'm amazed these websites don't just straight up like fall over, you know? It's like, you can imagine like 30,000 people just trying to like rush into a Walmart. It's like, what would that scene even look like? That would be like the battle of the Ride of the Rohirrim or something in Return of the King, man. Like, what is this? Where are all these horses coming from? You're so fed up with the pre-order system. Yeah, you know, the pre-order, like, Target was the most retarded one. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Target had, like, nothing to stop bots, man. There was, like, bots buying up, like, 30 Switch 2s, like, within the first 10 seconds of Target going live. Too much stress involved with chasing these products. Yeah, and you know, the easiest option, here's the thing that I forgot to talk about on that topic. So, GameStop didn't go live when everyone else did. So if you live near a GameStop, or if you live in a metropolitan area where there's a bunch of GameStops, like if you live, you know, let's say you live like 1 mile from one GameStop and then 2 miles from another GameStop and maybe another one is like 5 miles away. If you live near multiple GameStops, it's actually pretty easy to get a Nintendo Switch 2 from a GameStop because you could literally just go to a GameStop today, you know, throughout today, or call them up and they would tell you to come in and reserve one in person. So GameStop had two different pools. So they had the in-person pre-order pool, which was local per store. And then they had the online one. If you were trying to buy one from GameStop, I think GameStop, their pre-orders went live, I think it was like 10 a.m. Eastern this morning, or maybe it was 9 a.m. Eastern this morning. But the online orders for GameStop were no different from the Best Buy, the Target, the Walmart. It was the same sort of deal. Like, you'd be competing with all the other people who are trying to just order one online and get it like shipped to home or in-store pickup. But if you went into the GameStop of your choice, you had a very, very good chance that you would easily get one. It was like, that would have been like when I went to Micro Center to buy the 9070 XT in person, and it was like so easy. You just show up and you're pretty much guaranteed a graphics card. You know, as long as you put in the effort to drive to the store, you got one. You know, on launch day, it was that easy. So it's same deal with GameStop. If you drove to a GameStop, you could easily get one via pre-order. You were at number 33 and more, and then more. Yeah, so you got one in person then. See? Yeah, that's the smart way to do it, because as long as you go to the store, you're pretty much guaranteed to get it. Whereas otherwise, good luck. It's free for all. It's up you versus everyone else and all the bots and all the scalpers trying to get one online. So the online method is so hit or miss these days. So as long as you were in the line in the virtual queue on Best Buy or Walmart, especially Walmart, I heard a lot of people say Walmart was the easiest one. Like Walmart was actually the easiest one because Walmart has a better server infrastructure than Best Buy because Walmart is a larger company than Best Buy. Their server infrastructure is a lot more robust and a lot more similar to Amazon. And Amazon wasn't even like allowing pre-orders. So like Amazon was completely missing in action. So it's like you had to go to Walmart or Target or Best Buy. And we all know how trash Target and Best Buy are when it comes to these online queuing systems. So Walmart was the best one.
Launch day iPhone is much harder and I have to deal with it every year. Switch 2 was a piece of cake. 5090 is the hardest in my whole life so far.
5090. Oh man. Yeah. See, the thing is, so what I've realized, that's a great that's a great super chat. So the 5090 is the hardest in my whole life. Yeah, dude. All the Nvidia cards this year have been utter garbage trying to buy. Like straight all of them. Like every single one of them have been a nightmare to try to get. All I know, just speaking from the experience trying to get one back in January, 5090, it was like my strategy was, okay, Best Buy, Newegg, and Micro Center. So Newegg was not my first choice. And granted, this was before we knew how bad the Founders Edition was. So my initial attempt to buy a 5090 was obviously Best Buy, because Best Buy is the only way in the US to get the Nvidia Founders Edition 5090. So that was my top choice, and I was ready to go. I was ready to go, man. I was ready to click the button, and it's like right as the top of the hour comes up, it's like, on your marks, get set, 3, 2, 1, out of stock. It's like it goes from coming soon, here we go, coming soon, sold out of stock. Congratulations, everyone, out of stock. So I didn't even get a chance. It's like, what? The thing was like, not once did I ever see the button go from coming soon, it's grayed out, coming soon. It went from coming soon to sold out. Like, there was no add to cart. There was no get in line. It was like, no, coming soon to a theater near you and to sold out instantly. It's like, congratulations, gone. Like, everything gone. So the 5090 Founders Edition was like Thanos snap, or it was gromaged away. It's like, whoa, okay. So yeah, the Nvidia cards have been the hardest thing to try to purchase this year for sure. Any 50 series card. 5080 was just as dumb in terms of product availability, being nearly non-existent. Although I will say 5080, I did get it in my cart. I was able to get the 5080 Founders Edition in my cart on Best Buy, but I never got to check out. It was like, you're in line, and then it went to cart, and then I proceeded to like check out, and it's like, oops, sorry, the product is out of stock. Would you like to save it for later? It was like one of those things. I'm like, really? Okay, well, that was a little bit better than the 5090, but it's like, at least I saw it. At least I got to see it in the cart. The 5090, I didn't even get a chance, man. So, 5090 Founders Edition, in the mini. Yeah, well, I kind of gave up on the 50 series because of all the negative things about the, like, unless you have an Astral from Asus, you're constantly going to be living with anxiety if whether or not it's going to melt. If it's not the Astral, there's no way of knowing with the cable thing. It's like, because it pulls so much power all the time while gaming that it's, to me, it's so impractical of a hardware solution that anyone who has a 4090, they're really not missing out too much at the end of the day compared to the, like, having the 5090 or the lack of having a 5090. So at this point, I just kind of accepted the reality of, like, yeah, I'm not going to care to deal with bots and stuff like that and low supply for the better half of this year. Just whatever, get a 9070 XT and check out, like, FSR4 and go back to using the older cards because the older cards are still good. So that's the realization that I've come to when it comes to the Nvidia cards. But yeah, Nintendo Switch 2 was not that hard to get, to be honest. Like, it was, I had to wait. Like I said, I was in the virtual queue on Best Buy for around 50 minutes. 50 minutes. But once it was added to my cart, and once I saw the 10-minute, like, timer start, all I had to do was check out, and it was relatively smooth. It never timed out on me. It never pulled it out of the cart and said, "Oh, try again," or "Oops, sorry." Like, I never had that happen with the Switch 2. So the Switch 2 was pretty smooth. Like you said, Switch 2 was a piece of cake. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any problems. And I usually have a terrible time, like everyone else, trying to use the queuing systems on these websites. So, launch day iPhone is much harder. Yeah, the iPhone, it's interesting you mentioned the iPhone. So I'm someone who doesn't upgrade my phone that often. So I keep my phone for like 4 years minimum. So I think I've almost had my current phone for I've had it for about 2 years. So I'm going to do another 2 or so years on my existing phone. But yeah, the phone thing is very, very similar to buying these, I guess, tech products, we'll say, that people are trying to get, whether it's a game console or a graphics card or something along those lines. You've had your phone for 5 years. So my last phone was a OnePlus 5. And I had the OnePlus 5 from November 2017 all the way until May of 2023. So I had it for like almost 6 years. So my last phone, I had it for like 5.5 years. This phone I've had since May of 2023. So not nearly as long as that one. So I don't plan on upgrading my phone for a while. Lords of the Fallen 2.0 is so buggy. Really? I didn't have any problems with it. We showcased it last weekend. I haven't played it since, though. You're still on the iPhone 12? So the phone that I'm using currently is the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III. You fell through the map. That's funny. That's the sort of thing that people who train to do speed runs are constantly trying to find out. They're trying to find like areas where the collision detection is weak, so they can go out of bounds. They're always trying to discover new areas on the map where they can go out of bounds. It's funny. I wouldn't be surprised. People playing Clair Obscure are already trying to find how to get out of bounds to speed run that game. It'll be interesting to see how people speedrun a JRPG. Yeah, 9070 XT is 9070 XT. If they can get a big restock in soon, that card is probably the best one in terms of value. Like overall, best overall category, I can totally see the 9070 XT winning that award. Because there's nothing really else like it. At the end of the day, the 9070 XT doesn't really do anything revolutionary. You know, like, other than, oh, it's like AMD's first graphics card to do actual machine learning based upscaling. That's like its one novel thing, I guess. But it's the price point, assuming you can get one at the intended price point, it's the best value for sure. Yeah, it's constantly out of stock. That's why, like, I have no idea what the supply is like for that card, because it's, like, never in stock. In fact, I have never once, ever since the launch of the 9070 XT, not once have I ever seen it in stock in any decent capacity at Micro Center. It is literally constantly sold out at Micro Center ever since March. It's literally been almost 2 months since that card came out. And if you weren't able to get one on launch day, I have no idea. Like, if I didn't have one of those, and if I wanted one of those cards right now, I would have absolutely no idea how to go about buying a 9070 XT, because they're constantly scalped. The prices have been driven way up because they're always out of stock. So it's like, I don't know what is the true believable price anymore on that. So no idea. I have, like, that's the thing, guys. Same thing with the Switch 2. With the Switch 2, like, if you don't pre-order the Switch 2, like, I think it's not going to be as terrible in terms of low supply. I think if you don't pre-order a Switch 2, you will be able to get one probably in July, because I think there will be a decent number of restocks for the Switch 2 throughout the summer. So if you don't get one, if you weren't able to pre-order one today, you will probably be able to get one in July or maybe late June. Don't expect to be able to get one early June when it comes out, unless people cancel pre-orders or whatever. Otherwise, you know, you may have a chance there to get one from like a GameStop or something. But there was that whole Twitter thing about somebody from Nintendo saying there's not enough. You know, like, I saw that tweet. That was so bad. And I was like, oh no. Because I started late on the queuing system, and I was like, oh, my chances are really low now. But I still managed to get one. So, it's, yeah, I think Nintendo has a pretty good supply of these. So it shouldn't be too hard. It's not going to be like, it's not going to be as hard as trying to get a 9070 XT or any of the Nvidia cards. Those are like significantly harder than this. Is 850 good for 9070 XT? Probably. I don't know. Like I said, I have not seen it in stock at all ever since the initial launch. So I have no idea what the going value, like, what is a fair value for that card right now. I would say because of its performance level, probably 800-ish is still probably good, because at the end of the day, this card is within striking distance of a 4080 and a 7900 XTX. And you remember the price of those cards when those cards were new. So it's similar in terms of value. So I think like 800, like, would I spend $800 for a 48? Like, think of it like this. Ask yourself this. Would you spend $850 for a 4080 Super? Because the 9070 XT is basically a 4080 Super. It is 16 gigabytes of VRAM. The 4080 Super is 16 gigabytes of VRAM. They're roughly the same in a lot of ways. So the only difference is one of them has an Nvidia logo on it and the other one has an Radeon logo on it. So as far as I'm concerned, they're basically the same. As someone who has both cards, they're basically identical. That I honestly often forget which one is the one that I'm actually using, because they both have the same amount of VRAM. Because right now, like, those are the only 16 gigabyte graphics cards that I use. The 4080 Super and the 9070 XT. Every other graphics card that I use has more VRAM than that. Like, the other cards that I use have 24 gigabytes of VRAM. And the 7900 XT has 20 gigabytes of VRAM. That's actually another good card. So it's like, if you can't get a 9070 XT, but if you're able to find a 7900 XT, not the XTX, because the XTX is completely gone, unless you live near a Micro Center and Micro Center randomly gets a restock of a handful of XTXs every now and then. But if you don't live near a Micro Center, if you're able to find a 7900 XT for like $700, that is a really good deal, because that card has 20 gigabytes of VRAM, and it's not as fast as the 9070 XT, but it is close. It's close enough, and at $700, even at $700, 20 gigabyte graphics card is still a really good value at that price. So that one is one to consider if you're in the market for a graphics card and you're having a hard time finding these other cards. XTX is MSRP, but but now the newer model, but not the newer model. Well, is the XTX even available? I haven't seen an XTX anywhere in a long time. I think I saw one from Micro Center a few weeks ago, but it was only they only had like 5 of them, and they were all the ASRock one. Yeah, ASRock. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Well, okay, MSRP XTX is $1,000. So you're saying that Micro Center has the XTX for $1,000? But the other newer cards are marked up? Well, the thing is, earlier this year, the XTX was on sale for like $900. I saw it as low as like $800 something back in January. So, like right when the 5090 was coming out and the 5080 was coming out, the XTX was on sale for like $800 something. So that would have been the time to buy the XTX. But see, the problem is everyone was paying attention to the new Nvidia cards, or they were waiting for the 9070 XT to see how that card would stack up. So the XTX was kind of sitting on store shelves, and the retailers were trying to move inventory, so they lowered the price on it. 7900 XT for $650 is a really, really good deal for that card. That's a very good deal for that card, considering the VRAM. Just considering the VRAM alone, that's a good value. VRAM is king in this day and age. Like, that is, man, $650 for a 20 gigabyte graphics card is really, really good. Newegg has had some XTX Sapphire Nitro. Interesting. Yeah, well, that's... So the original MSRP for the Sapphire Nitro XTX was $1,200. So $1,119 is technically still a sale price for that card. Although that card is kind of old now, so, you know, whatever. That's a fair price. I would say in this day and age, with GPU shortages the way they are, I think that's still a good price. $3090 Ti, 4090, and 9070 XT. I have the XTX, but I use the 7900, no, the 9070 XT. You also have, so you kind of have the same situation that I have. So, like, so these are the PCs that I use to test things. So let's go back over here real quick. So you guys have probably already seen, like, the videos that we do. So we've got the 9800X3D plus the 4080 Super. We have the 9950X3D plus the 9070 XT. And then we have the 9950X plus the 7900 XT. These are like the 3 main computers. You know, currently this one is the one that we're using right now. That's Tech Thursdays. So I don't mess with this one. This one is kind of like a static setup. Do not mess with it because it's used. It has to be reliable for the weekly live stream. This was the benchmark PC, but currently this is the benchmark PC. So I don't know. I think I need to probably do something with changing around the GPUs, but that's kind of how it's set up. This one is the one that you guys see me use on the gaming live streams currently. So like, for example, when we stream Expedition 33, we will be streaming that game on this computer in the middle. I may do something similar like what I did with Monster Hunter and stream different sessions with different computers, showcasing how Expedition 33 runs on different hardware. But currently, the plan is to stream the majority of the game using the 9070 XT. So that's the setup that we will use. The one up here, this one is used for making like YouTube videos for like, you know, for example, the DDR5 videos that we do. That is typically using that top computer for demo video / purposes, that kind of thing. For YouTube content. That's what I use the top computer for. This is the one that I call it the test bench computer. So meaning this isn't always going to be there. I can like swap this. If we're going to do, for example, if I want to do a GPU comparison video, I will use the top computer. This is the one that I will benchmark with this GPU, then take it out, put a different GPU in, do the benchmark test, pull that second GPU out, put the third GPU. You know what I'm saying? That's what this top computer is for. That's its purpose. It's a test bench machine. It is not a gaming computer. It is not a live stream computer. It is meant for me to use to make YouTube videos related to GPU comparisons, overclocking guides, that kind of thing. That is what that top computer is for. The main two that I use. So if you're a YouTube member, like if you're a member of the channel, you have access to some of the behind the scenes videos, and there are more videos that I'm working on that are going to be members only, which are more like informal behind the scenes content. So the members already know, assuming you guys have seen the video, you guys know what the setup looks like for Tech Thursdays and the weekend live streams. But what you guys have not seen, you haven't seen this setup, although, I mean, most people have seen that computer if they've watched my recent DDR5 videos. So that computer has been shown, and it will be shown in a lot more tutorial videos in the future. But that's pretty much, these are the three systems that I use for the YouTube channel. Have you tried Elder Scrolls Oblivion? No, I have not. I have not. I don't know if I'll be able to get around to it. So there's a couple of things. So great segue actually to switch to the gaming, unless anybody had something else to talk about on the GPU stuff. What? 32 gigabyte 9070. That's probably a professional card. So that'll be someone was asking earlier, can you use an AMD Radeon Pro card to play games? Yes, you can, but it's not supposed to do that. Because Radeon Pro cards are a lot more expensive than regular Radeon cards. So it's like if you want to spend, you know, twice the money or sometimes more than double the price for a Radeon Pro just to get the exact same gaming experience on the non-pro, you know, go ahead, be my guest if you can get one of those cards and you don't care about spending that much extra money on it. But those cards are not meant for gaming. You can totally game on them. I mean, developers working on games game on them all the time to test the games, but they are not the intended. That's just playing games with a Radeon Pro card is not the intended use case for the Radeon Pro card. The same way you would not buy a RTX professional card from Nvidia just to play Oblivion remaster on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not going to spend $7,000 for a Nvidia professional graphics card just to play Oblivion remastered. That's not a good use of the funding for that. Anyway, so the games of this week. Actually, Tech Power Up has a good article on that. Yeah, the Tech Power Up, man, coming through with the articles here. So this week in gaming, week 16, the first game mentioned, Clair Obscure Expedition 33. This game is a phenomenal game. This is currently front runner for Game of the Year, as far as I'm concerned. And after watching a lot of reviews, I'm hearing similar things from a lot of game reviewers, that this game is, at the very least, this game is going to be on the Game of the Year candidate list. And I 100% agree with that sentiment. This game is good. I've only played like a little more than 2 hours. I'm in Act 1. So for those of you that are looking forward to the playthrough on stream, you're not going to see the prologue because I've already played through the prologue. But man, like from the very beginning, from the first like 10 minutes of the game just draws you in. It's like watching a Lord of the Rings epic, and you just don't want to stop. You just don't want to stop playing the game. It is that good. It is so good. Amazing game. It feels so original while also maintaining a familiar feel. So what else we got this week? So Rise of Rebellion was on the 21st. This is a 3D action RPG that pursues the tension of confronting strong enemies and sweating in your hands. Okay, that sounds cool. This looks it looks very Souls-like with the UI down here on the bottom left. Heavy block, Bond of Earth. I mean, these things, like this looks like a Devil May Cry Souls-like, just at first glance. But you know, it looks cool. Unfortunately, I don't think I have time to get around to it, but that one looks pretty interesting. Post Trauma is a puzzle horror game, and Red Soul Games is a small studio made up of fans of old school survival horror. We have to, okay, so that's let's see. So this one, okay. This one looks interesting too. Doll's Nest is a 3D action game where you can customize mecha girls and explore a ruined world. This one looks like an indie game, like the quality of the visuals. As a frame unit, your adventure will pit you against the gigantic autonomous factory world of HOD. Overcome obstacles using the parts at your disposal. Okay. Tempest Rising. Take on the role of commander in the highly mobile and advanced peacekeeping corps of the Global Defense Forces, or the hard-hitting and desperate Tempest Dynasty, in 2 11-mission campaigns. This is an RTS, so this looks like Command and Conquer and StarCraft and Age of Empires and all that stuff. So wait, this person's wearing a Scouter from Dragon Ball Z. That's cool. Necrophosis is a first-person horror adventure plunging you into a nightmarish realm teeming with grotesque forms and ominous visuals. Okay, the way they describe that, grotesque forms and ominous visuals. This looks like Blade Runner meets Lords of the Fallen or something. I don't know, but it's like you don't see any of the characters. It's just, it looks like the screenshots are all just like environmental stuff. So I don't know. That one's delve into eerie landscapes and uncover secrets in this atmospheric journey through a macabre. So, okay. And then also launching is Once Upon a Puppet. So interesting, no mention of Oblivion. Why did they leave out Oblivion? Did Oblivion come out this week or was it last week? Why is it not mentioned? What day was Oblivion? Oblivion Remaster. Release date. Available now. Bethesda. It was April 22nd, so it was on Tuesday. Wow, Tech Power completely forgot about that. I guess because it's not an original game, it's just like a remaster. Yeah, but out of all of these, so not counting Expedition 33, the one that actually sounds the most interesting to me is this one looks cool, but if it looks clunky from gameplay videos, I'll probably never play it. This one does look kind of cool though. The premise looks interesting. The horror games, there's like two of them, Post Trauma and this other one. Those sound cool. I don't know if they actually play good. This one looks like old school, you know, like Silent Hill, Resident Evil style. So that one looks like it could be interesting. This is very Resident Evil 2 looking, this environment here. That's kind of interesting. A puzzle horror game. So it's kind of like a Corpse Party and Silent Hill and Resident Evil, all those type of games. Dread Out and things like that. That'd be kind of interesting to see. But out of all of them, yeah, this one by far is the one that I'm looking forward to playing the most. So finally a game. So the question earlier about Oblivion, I don't know if I'll have time to cover that. I may look at it, but it won't be this weekend. And I don't know if it'll be next weekend either. The problem for Oblivion is that it is coming out, it is releasing right around Expedition 33, and then also Monster Hunter Wilds just had the Spring Festival start. So there's like a limited time event happening for the next, I think, 2 or 3 weeks in Monster Hunter Wilds. And then Arch-Tempered Raidou is also coming really soon. So I will be doing those hunts. I don't know if I'll do them on stream. We may do like one live stream next weekend for Arch-Tempered Raidou in Monster Hunter Wilds. But Monster Hunter Wilds has been having some issues recently for a lot of people, myself included, with online lobbies and connection problems. So I don't know if I'm the only one having that problem, but I know I've talked to a couple of other people that are experiencing the same problem. So I don't know what happened, but the recent update from, I guess it was like the 15th of April, has introduced some server-side problems for Monster Hunter Wilds, which I don't know what they did to change things. But, yeah, there's been a lot of problems with multiplayer with Monster Hunter Wilds, which is unfortunate for that game, because that game already had issues with performance. That was the largest criticism of Monster Hunter Wilds was, initially, it was a lack of difficulty, even though people kept carting to Gore Magala. So I never had a problem with the difficulty. But a lot of people kept complaining about difficulty. The major problem, though, with Monster Hunter Wilds, which I think ultimately is going to damage that game's reputation and hurt it from being able to get like nominations for any sort of rewards this year, is probably the performance. The performance of Monster Hunter Wilds, for how the game looks versus how it runs, doesn't meet the public's expectations. So I think Capcom has been in denial about this for over a year, because Dragon's Dogma 2 was the exact same story, and Dragon's Dogma 2's performance was a preview of what to expect for Monster Hunter Wilds. So Capcom's Band-Aid fix to the performance issues was, oh, everyone needs to use frame gen, and that's just how it is, and that's how life is. Tough luck. That was basically the answer. And that did not sit well with a lot of gamers. So a lot of people were very critical of Monster Hunter Wilds and Capcom because of that. Recently, Capcom has had server problems with people getting disconnected from responding to SOS hunts, people hosting session lobbies, and then the people having trouble joining the lobbies. There's been a lot of problems on the multiplayer side of Monster Hunter Wilds recently, and the fact that the Spring Festival has come out as of this past Tuesday, and now people are having all these problems with the servers, you know, that is not a good look. So that is only even more reputation damaging for Monster Hunter Wilds, which is very unfortunate because that's a very good game. But thankfully, I can avoid all of that by just sidestepping away from Monster Hunter Wilds for a while to this game, because I think this game is definitely worth checking out, especially if you have Game Pass. If you have Microsoft Game Pass, this game is literally included in Game Pass right now. So it's like, if you're on the fence, if you're not a fan of turn-based RPGs, or whatever the excuse may be, if you have Game Pass, you should definitely check this game out, because this game is really, really good. I cannot stress that enough. And I only really cover what I consider good games. We don't cover games that I don't consider worth talking about. So, yeah, this one is definitely one that will get coverage on this channel. Very, very good game. Why Microsoft Game Pass? I think it's because Microsoft helped these guys. I have a feeling that Microsoft helped fund on the side as like a third party. They helped this developer in some capacity, because this game and the developer was featured earlier this year, back in February or January, in Microsoft's Developer Direct, where they did like, I think 3 or 4 games. This was one of them. They did a deep dive behind the scenes with interviewing the main leadership team that worked on this game. So that's why it's on Game Pass, because Microsoft had some role behind the scenes. They didn't have any say in the direction of how this game was developed, but Microsoft, I think, did help them promote the game later on. So that's why there's some kind of deal with Sandfall and Microsoft. What night do you plan to start streaming it? We could do tonight. We could do as early as tonight, because I'm thinking like we're pretty much like Tech Thursdays. There's really nothing to talk about, so we may just end this show early and just go straight to Expedition 33. So if you guys want to see that, we can switch over to Expedition 33. Expedition 33 does run a lot better than the new Elder Scrolls remake. Yeah, I still can't believe that this game was made by like a core team of 30 people. I still can't believe that. Like, if nobody told me that, if no one said that there was 30 people that made this game, I would have never guessed. I would have guessed like at least 60 people, if not 100 people, were involved with this game. Like, I still find that mind-boggling that you take like 30 people can make a game of this caliber. Like, that just goes to show how marketing and giant corporations, like, it just because a large company with a lot of money gets behind making a video game, that doesn't mean that the game is going to be a success. There are lots of examples of this. Concord is the most recent example that I can think of a big name, AAA studio, big developer, huge budget. You know, we're talking multi-million-dollar budget in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and the game flopped, you know. So, meanwhile, you got something like this. 30 gamers versus 100 programmers. I don't understand that. What does that mean exactly? Because they had such a small team making such a good game, guys. Like, this game is worth every penny as far as I'm concerned. Number 2 game on Steam was made by one guy, Schedule 1. I don't know what that is. Schedule 1. What is that? Schedule 1 sounds like a puzzle game. Schedule 1. What is this? This is made by one person. This looks, it has a funny art style. It has a very, like, cartoony art style. Yeah, well... What is the game about? The game looks random. It looks so random. I have no idea what this is about. Oh, it's early access though. It's early access though, right? Like there's a free sample demo. I don't know how Steam counts the player thing, like if like people who buy it versus people who are just playing the demo because it's early access. Gamers have more passion on the games they made rather than something made by a group of that are just doing their job. Well, yeah, but it goes more than just the programming though. Like there's so much behind the scenes. Like if you guys watch the recent interviews with the voice actors that were involved with voicing the characters, at least the English voice acting cast, they talk about the difference. Like Ben Starr was interviewed recently. Jennifer English and Ben Starr were interviewed by PlayStation Access in the UK. I watched that whole hour interview because those guys, what they were saying about like working with a small team, they could easily sense like the passion behind and the enthusiasm behind everything about the game. Whereas on their past projects, it's like, yeah, like Larian Studios for Baldur's Gate 3, that one was also a really good one, but that was still a much larger team. And then, like Ben Starr voicing Clive in Final Fantasy 16, obviously Final Fantasy 16, you know, that's Square Enix, that's a huge game company with a massive budget, and the game took like more than 5 years to make or whatever, like from the initial scoping phase all the way to go to market, you know, like that whole process, like he was involved like only from like year 3 or 4 from when the game started development, and then he was only there just to do the voice lines for the English dub of the game. You know, that you can imagine that is so much more compartmentalized in the development structure versus like how it is with a small group of like 30 people. You know, it's a big difference, huge difference. But it was interesting hearing their take on, you know, the difference working with a small passionate team of ex-developers versus like working with a typical corporate company with a large budget. So, yeah, this game's good. This game is going to be a roller coaster of emotions, though. Like, this is the sort of game, though, that I feel like, hopefully, this game will inspire other developers, both East and West, to develop games that have deep character arcs and story character development that you could see in traditional, like, JRPGs, but the problem with JRPGs is oftentimes the protagonist is like a teenager, and I feel like because this game is definitely, the cast of characters the whole premise of the story is written from an adult's lens of the world, like the viewpoint, which is very different from how you see like your traditional like JRPGs, for example, like all the Persona games, you know, it's always like a high school kid or whatever, which is fine, but I'm just saying, like, to me it seems like when it comes to role-playing games, oftentimes there's too many games where the protagonist is a certain archetype, you know, a certain demographic, a certain age range, and this game kind of breaks that mold. Now, I'm not saying every game before this has been like that. You know, like Final Fantasy VII, Cloud, the main protagonist, is in his early 20s. And so obviously you have an adult cast of characters in that game, but there's way too many RPGs where the cast is much younger, and I feel like they do that because you can show a lot of growth, you can show a lot of character development because the main cast is relatively young, so they have a lot of experience to gain. So it kind of like fits the mold of how a character is supposed to progress both mentally and physically through an RPG adventure. But this game kind of breaks that mold because like, okay, the main character is an adult and it's like his last year to live. And so what are you it brings the question of what do you do with the time that you have left? And within that premise, there's still a lot of growth that you can show in terms of character development. So I think it's a very unique game in that regard when it comes to character viewpoints. The world itself is very intriguing, it's very original. The premise of a cursed world where the total population is getting younger and younger every year because every year the paintress like basically Thanos snaps like everyone of a certain age out of existence. So like it's a really interesting original premise that I think draws on a lot of inspiration from a lot of old school RPGs, both East and West. But this one definitely, there was a really good interview by a Japanese publication. I forget the name of the publication, but they interviewed both the main director slash producer slash founder of Sandfall. They interviewed him and they interviewed one of the main guys that worked on a lot of the Final Fantasy games back in the day. Like the guy he produced Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy Type 0, and some of the older ones. Maybe he did Final Fantasy, I think he did Final Fantasy 8. Yeah, he did Final Fantasy 8. They interviewed both, and that was a very interesting interview.
The parry mechanism is brilliant, incorporating the most sought-after combat element in Souls game to turn-based battles. I am playing in hard and it is so much fun.
Yeah, that's the thing. This game has something for everyone. So if you're someone who really likes hardcore, challenging, like Twitch-based, reaction time-based combat, this game has it. If you're someone who just wants to play for the narrative because you like the premise of the story and it's intriguing to you, but you don't care too much about like Souls type high reflex combat, you can play the game on the story difficulty and it's very approachable. It'll feel very much like a traditional RPG in that regard, turn-based RPG. So really, really good. So yeah, there's something for everyone in this game. And that is something that I can't say for a game like Monster Hunter Wilds. Because I feel like Monster Hunter Wilds, as good as that game is, I recognize that that game is not for everyone. Not everyone is going to enjoy grinding, basically hunting the same monsters over and over and over again, in essentially a feedback loop of trying to get more gear and glamour and loot and weapons and all that stuff. Like, not everyone's going to like that style of gameplay. So, as good as Monster Hunter is, it's a game that is not for everyone. Whereas I think this game, regardless of what your opinion is on the turn-based combat, I think there's enough of a challenge and there's enough of variation in the difficulty levels that there's something for everyone here. Meaning this game is approachable to a huge audience in terms of like the appeal in a lot of things: the story, the characters, the combat system, the entire like world building, the everything about it. Even the music, guys. Like even the music, the soundtrack. This game might get nominated not only for Game of the Year, but it might get nominated for like best voice actor slash voice actress. It might get nominated for best original soundtrack. The soundtrack of this game is extremely good. So my main thing is if I'm gonna stream this game, I hope that I'm not gonna get like copyright blah 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 because of the OST playing in the background. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but
High hopes for this RPG. I'm finding it difficult to connect with teenage stories since I'm not a younger gamer.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about this game. Like this game, the core audience, the core cast is written. They are adults and they are written as adults. You know, like the frame of reference from Gustav, the main protagonist, like it is a very dark story, but at the same time, there are so many elements in the game's story, so many underlying themes that this game can appeal not only to an older audience, but to people who can relate to these type of life-changing events happening to them. You know, like the pain of loss is explored in the game. So there's a lot of stuff to unpack just on that alone that can appeal to a lot of people, or not just appeal, but to a lot. It's very relatable. It feels very relatable, and I think that's another thing that kind of elevates this game above your generic RPG or something that's more simplified in terms of like a action-oriented epic like Ninja Gaiden or Dynasty Warriors or Monster Hunter Wilds, for example. Or even Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a very good narrative story. In fact, the character depth might even be deeper in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 than in this game. Although, I don't know. I'll reserve judgment on this game until I see more of the story here. But you guys see what I'm saying. Like, the depth of how the feel, the impression that you get as someone playing the game. The more you play the game, the more you start realizing, man, this game goes really, really deep in a lot of different areas, and you can tell that the screenwriter, the voice actor cast, like the acting cast, everyone gave it their all. Everyone put their A game into making this game what it is, and I think it really shows. It really shines through. So, I don't know. Without wanting to sound like I'm just trying to sell people on the game, definitely check it out if you have Game Pass. It's free on Game Pass, and I think it's worth every penny. So it's like if you have any of the platforms that this game is available on, whether it's Microsoft Game Pass, PlayStation 5, the PC, you should definitely check it out. You know, it is, dare I say, it might be one of the most generation-defining games of the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X generation. Meaning, when I think back to the PlayStation 5 era, this is a game that'll immediately come to mind. Like when I think of like, okay, what was the PS5 era like? You know, Expedition 33 is one of the first games that I will think of when I look back at the PlayStation 5 generation from the future looking back inward. So, anyway, guys, with that said, we're probably going to go ahead and end the stream. This is definitely a shorter episode of Tech Thursdays. There's really not a whole lot more to talk about, unless you guys had questions about like DDR5. The nice thing is QDIM is making higher capacity, higher speed possible, but there is also like G-Skill. Hold on, let me see. Was it on here? G-Skill 192 gigabyte. Was it this one? No. Okay. G-Skill 192 gigabyte DDR5 6000. Oh wait, no, 256. It was 256, wasn't it? Yeah, G-Skill. Yeah, this one. Just to kind of tie off on the DDR5 thing. G-Skill now has a 256 gigabyte memory kit that can run at DDR5 6000. And this one is a non-CU DIMM. So this one has the AMD Expo profiles. This is the Neo. But this is pretty crazy. Like, because I know, if you guys have been following this channel for a while, you would know that trying to run 4 sticks of dual rank at 6000 is an incredibly challenging thing to do. This is way harder to do than trying to run 48 gigabytes at like 8200 or something on a high-end motherboard. Like, this is way harder to do than that. But the fact that G.Skill has done all the R&D required to just make this plug and play in an Expo profile is the sort of thing that I want to see from the memory companies, because like I shouldn't be having to make overclocking guides to get 6,000 working on, 120 gigs of RAM. So G.Skill finally is starting to do what I've been waiting for memory resellers to do for a long time now. So you guys can see here, they've got MemTest Pro running. It's passing with full stability. They have a ROG Crosshair X870E Hero, 256 gigs of RAM, running at 6,000, and the timings on it are pretty good. CL32 with that much RAM running at that capacity, at that speed, is very impressive. So I am impressed. I am 100% impressed with what G.Skill has managed to do here. And on top of that, they're running 1-to-1, which is actually not that hard to do, no matter how much memory you're running, as long as you're at 6,000 or lower speeds. And then they're doing another one here. So this one, it was with a 9800 X3D. And then here they have the MSI MPG X870E Carbon Wi-Fi and a Ryzen 9 9900X running 256 at 6,000 again. So, and then they've got another one down here. They have the MSI. Oh, here's the crazy one. This one is the crazy one. So here they have the MSI Meg X870E Godlike with the 9800 X3D running 256 gigabytes at DDR5-8000. So now they're doing 7,000 with 4 dual rank DIMMs. This is the most impressive thing that I have seen as someone who is probably the only resource on the internet showing people how to run 4 sticks of dual rank at 6,000. G.Skill literally has now one-upped me by doing 256 at 7,000. So it's like, okay, I don't know how to like compete with that, because like, I don't even have those type of modules, man. Like I don't even have that on hand to test, but that is pretty crazy. So the Godlike is capable of doing 256 gigs at 7,000. That is insane, but I can believe it because the Godlike, you guys have to remember, the MSI Godlike is a 10-layer PCB. So it has the best noise isolation between the memory channels and the wire traces from the CPU over to the RAM and vice versa. So this is very incredible stuff. And then what do they have here? So this one, again, they have 256 gigabytes at 6,400 in 1-to-1 ratio on a X870E Crosshair Hero with the 9900 X3D. It's very nice to see the 9900 X3D get some representation, because that's the CPU that no one talks about, and that CPU is still a pretty good CPU as a good all-rounder. So, man, here's another one. 256 gigabytes in 1-to-1 ratio, 6,400 on a MSI MAG B850M Mortar Wi-Fi. So this is on a low-end motherboard. What? They did this on a low-end motherboard? Okay, I don't know. We're going to have to stop here. Otherwise, I'm going to talk about memory for another hour. And I don't think people want to hear about that. But anyway, there you go. It's good to see 4 sticks of DDR5 is starting to come through as a reality now, due to innovation from G.Skill and Crucial. So hopefully we'll see some of this roll out soon, so we can probably test some of this. So if you're a power user and you need the RAM, you just want the RAM so you can have lots and lots of RAM and you don't have to worry about running out of memory, because people are like, why is my game stuttering? Well, because you're running out of VRAM. Okay, well, no, what if you have a 5090? Why is my game stuttering? Oh, because you're out of system RAM, because you only have 32 gigs of system RAM. You know, so yeah, man, like 256 gigs of RAM, like this is definitely a Threadripper type of capacity. I can't think of anyone that would need 256 gigs on a regular Ryzen desktop, but there's a lot of people out there that just want a lot of RAM. You guys would be surprised. The tech enthusiasts watching this channel would be surprised, like, because oftentimes I see people leave comments or like ask in the Discord, like, can someone help me with, and it's always like someone trying to run like 4 sticks of DDR5 at high speed, expecting it to be plug and play. Well, thankfully, G.Skill and Crucial, although Crucial's going with the QDIM route, these companies are finally starting to make 4-stick kits that you can just buy straight up and they will work out of the box. Because all these people like asking for help, you know, like this is not a tech support channel. Like that's not what we do here. So it's like I can't count the number of times people have left comments asking for help on, like, you know, I bought 128 gigabytes of Corsair, blah blah blah, and I'm having trouble. It's stuck at 3600. Please help. You know, there's so much of that, and I'm like, did you watch the video? Like, go and watch the video. It's like, do you have the motherboard? Like, you know, like, there's only so much that I can do. So, that's good to see that the memory manufacturers are starting to actually do kits that are out of the box plug and play that can do this. So that should cut back on the number of times I see people posting comments like, oh, I have this much RAM and it's not working, and Mayday, SOS, Flare, help me, you know. But everybody seems to want to run like 128 gigs. I don't know why, but like the number of times that I see comments about 128, 192, maybe it's because I'm the only channel on the internet that covers that. Like, no one else that I know of in the tech world ever shows anything related to 128 gigs of RAM or 192 gigabytes of RAM. And now soon, 256 gigs of RAM in the case of G.Skill. But yeah, maybe that's why I get all the comments and all the like questions and requests. But anyway, guys, that's probably going to be it for this stream. What are the system specs for this game, Expedition 33, to get 100 FPS? You basically need... Here, let's just go here. You basically need a 6800 XT. Clair Obscure. Right here. So you need to have, for the CPU, the recommended, I don't do minimum, I don't believe in minimum specs. These are always like misleading. So for 1080p, 60 frames per second, you need to have, and I think this is probably with upscaling, but I'm not 100% sure on that. You need to have either you have to have a Pandemic CPU or better, or you need to have a GeForce RTX 3070 or an AMD Radeon RX 6800 XT 16 gigabyte. Dedicated video RAM, it says 8 gigabytes, AMD 16 gigabytes. I don't know why they say that, but Anyway, Windows 11, shader model. I don't know if this even matters. But basically, you need, if you're playing the game at 1080p, here, you know what? I'm just going to use Paint. I'm just going to use Paint. Forget about this. We don't need that. That's not really helpful. So let's do Paint. I'll just do my own. Okay, so what I can tell you guys is 1080p, 60. You need to have a 6800 XT or RTX 3080 or better. We don't even need better. There, that's what you need. RX 6800 XT or RTX 3080 or equivalent. For 1440p 60, you need to have either an RX 7900 XT or an RTX 4070 Ti. That is required. These are the minimum. These are the minimums for these specs. For 2160p at 60 FPS, you need to have an RTX 5080 or, hold on, is that right? No, that's not good enough. You need to have an RTX technically only the RTX 5090 can handle this game at native 4K. The 4090, we'll just say 4090 or better. This can barely make it. I can tell you guys because I've already tested the game. Spoiler alert, we've already played Clair Obscure with an RTX 4090, so I know exactly how it runs at 4K. So at 4K, the RTX 4090 can barely handle 60 FPS. It can, sometimes it's above in certain scenes at native 4K with DLAA. The 4090 can be above 60. It can get as close to like low 70s. But oftentimes, it will dip into the 50s with a 4090 at 4K native resolution. This is with DLSS, DLAA, meaning this is 4K native internal rendered with no upscale. The 4090 at native 4K can barely, it basically meets the minimum required threshold for 60 FPS for Expedition 33. So everything else is going to be 1440p or some form of upscale. So there you go. This is the table. If we're going to use more modern graphics cards to describe 1080p, what we can say is the RX 9070 or RTX 5070 are required for. Is that right? Something doesn't seem right about that. Hold on, is that right? Something seems off with that statement. Hold on, let me make sure. Let me see. RX 6800 XT. Okay. Yeah, I guess 5070 is. No, 5070, I think 5070, 9070 are a little bit better. So let's change this. Technically the 9060 XT or the RTX 5060 Ti will probably be enough for 1080p for this game. I think. And then for 1440p, we can substitute this with the RX 9070 or the RTX 5070. That to me sounds more right. Like, that to me sounds correct. So, yeah, this is what I would consider the correct GPU the correct GPU numbers. And then I guess CPU. So this game is a single player game and it is fairly linear. There's not a lot of areas where it's going to be CPU bound. So basically Zen 3 or Intel 11th gen or better. Like that's pretty much for CPU. So you can run the game with a DDR4 platform and it'll be fine. It's not super CPU demanding. There are some areas, like in the prologue, actually, there are a lot of NPCs in the prologue, like in the main city at the very beginning of the game. So it could be CPU dependent in those scenes. But for the most part, the vast majority of the game is not going to require a super high-end modern CPU. So any Ryzen 5000 or Intel 10th or 11th gen will probably be fine with this game. But yeah, if we're using more modern GPUs, that's pretty much what's required here. For those of you wanting to play the game at 4K native, I think the only like super challenging resolution for this game is 4K 60 native. Like that's the one that's really challenging. And 4090 can do it. It can do it. It's not going to do it all the time on epic settings. Like I said earlier, it's going to dip to like low 50s. So we may even live stream with it just to show like how it runs native 4K. I don't normally feature the 4090 on live streams, but we may make an exception for this game because this game is so good. But anyway, guys, we managed to stretch this stream past 90 minutes. So I guess what we'll do is we will probably just end the stream here, and then we'll be back with Expedition 33. Yeah, at the top of the hour. So we'll probably do that. So if you're new to the channel, if you're new to the live streams, I guess, we do these weekly live streams every Thursdays. Hence the name of the title of this live stream, Tech Thursdays. But we cover this. We cover all things PC DIY, and sometimes, like in this case, we focus on the gaming topics of the week. If we are kind of light on tech-related things, which we are this week, we're very light on tech-related articles. So other than the Switch 2 pre-orders, which are pretty much all sold out now, that was the main thing that I wanted to bring up. So if you were able to pre-order a Switch 2 and you wanted one, congratulations, because you are pretty much guaranteed one on launch day. And if you were not able to get one, don't give up, because check with your local GameStops if you have a GameStop in your area, because they may be able to still put you in on a waiting list. And maybe the websites like Walmart and Best Buy may get restocks in a couple of weeks, I've been told. So there's still going to be a chance to get one. It's just going to be harder. So it's one of those things. If you miss that initial window of opportunity, your life gets harder when it comes to trying to get these new hardware devices. That's just how it is. I'm not the one that determines that. That is just the reality that we're living in right now. It's back to the way it was in late 2020 and all throughout 2021. Anyone who was around and paying attention to technology in that era knows exactly what it was like trying to buy computer hardware in 2021. And unfortunately, we're back to living in those times again for the foreseeable future. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. There will be a live stream starting in less than 20 minutes. And it will be Expedition 33 here on the Game Tech Reviews channel. So tune in for that if you're interested in the game. And if you don't want to be spoiled, like if you want to avoid spoilers, I guess don't tune into the live stream, because it's going to be massive, massive spoilers. So anyway, that's it for the stream. Thank you all for tuning in. And I will catch you guys next week on the next Tech Thursdays. And we'll be back next week with Monster Hunter Wilds, Arch-Tempered Raidou, and the Spring Festival. So until then, take care, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks.